Hello team and welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today in a 1v1 in the T2 2023 tournament between T in blue and Shin Yellow Waffle, also known as Cryptosporinium, in red. This is from the upper bracket in the bracket stage of the tournament. On seed 443,864. T spawning in the top right. And I'm gonna call them Crypto in the bottom left. Crypto's going for a town, a factory, and a barracks as the pre-built buildings, and then a factory and a barracks in the north. I should say pre-construction buildings, not pre-built. But the first buildings that they went for is that two towns for T on the right hand side and an airport, building helicopters, followed up by a factory and a third town. So a lot of eco for blue. Love to see it. And neither player is going to know where the other one is. Clearly, because Fog of War is a thing in RTS. I always cast these things in case somebody just like finds the game and they're not familiar with it. But for folks who've been watching these casts, you're probably thinking, shut up, I know there's Fog of War, you stupid duck. But let's get into it. T's got 400 economy in total. And Crypto's got 355, and that's that difference of those two extra towns. Rather, the second town for T is still building, so I don't think that factors into the eco quite yet. So we'll jump a little bit more for blue as well. And T going for Sam's immediately as the first factory unit, which I think is a pretty defensive play to go for. I like the play. It's always nice having a few Sams in case your opponent shows up with some amount of air units. I forget what the picking phase was like, but there would be a chance that Crypto would be in, close enough to be able to launch planes at T, depending on the openers that Red could have gone for. And so there's going to be a lot of buildup in this game. Both players very likely going to get into a fight in the north, and then I also assume in the south there's going to be a fight. There's one helicopter already for T, which is actually just going to jump across this channel by itself, which is a pretty cool scout. Helicopters don't have great vision, but they'll have enough vision to be able to detect like the expanding infantry from Red. That will give T a decent idea where Crypto is. And Crypto's got this 2 barracks, 1 factory set up in the north part of the north side of these mountains. And then also building some more production in the south. So certainly Red's going to be up on the number of units that are produced. But then we'll see how well T's able to translate all of this economy of these 3 towns into production. I'd suspect it's going to be a lot of barracks or some more barracks for blue. Because it is a relatively large land map when it really comes down to it. There is water in the center. But any barracks that are built at home could, in theory, go all the way around the map. And it's actually connected on this side as well, which is a very big deal. So the first SAM is done for T. First Interceptor is also in the air. Interceptors are the coolest unit in Line War. We all know this. And really, this is, I believe, just a scout for T. At the edge of the range of where this interceptor can go. On that blue line. I mean, obviously, this is T's vision, but they clearly won't actually see, like, Crypto's commands like that. In case that wasn't already obvious. First player to build a dock is T. It's a very safe location. It'd be difficult for Red to be able to get a bunch of boats around this little peninsula without blue at least seeing it relatively early on. And the next time that this interceptor comes out to scout, it will see all of these red units. There are some commandos for T. Commandos with their great detection, fantastic scouts. They're going to get in front of these infantry and kind of pave the way. And Crypto takes probably the safest port possible in this little lake behind their starting base. It is a transport boat from T, so the intention is probably to send infantry across the channel while these folks continue to cap on the right-hand side. And more helicopters on the way. He's already sent the interceptor home. I assume it might not actually have any damage, but it certainly would have seen these red units. And eco-wise, 595 for blue. And 595 for red, look at that. About 5.5 minutes in, because I believe the actual active phase of the game started at 7 minutes. And both players have the exact same eco. Which this has been very good capping. For Crypto in the north. Who is adding another barracks in the south and has nearly got the entire bottom side of the map, or at least starting to push up to these two natural chokes. T also has a port at this point. And building a very forward town, it kind of makes sense, and it's going to be unfortunate for T because that first interceptor scout saw nothing. This commando still doesn't really see much. But in reality, Crypto's going to have a pretty big army in the north, especially once all these infantry to the left are done capping here, and then all three buildings can just kind of focus towards the town. And it'll be a little bit of a tough situation if Crypto's able to get to like this position before T's infantry get here, because we know just how strong defensive lines are. So if you can get into a choke and just put down some defensive lines, it's very difficult for your opponent to actually break through that. So now T sees it, sees that there's some factories here. Good movement on this commando to get out of the way. And that change in the latest patch means that a point-blank unit will be able to see a commando, but you can still find opportunities to do stuff like this with the commandos going around the army. And we'll see if T decides to dig in at the town. It's not a very attractive sort of option because then your infantry aren't capping for you. And at a glance, Blue probably doesn't really think that there's too much of an army that Crypto has up here. Putting down a factory right beside the town, which will be very nice, producing artillery pieces, maybe some SAMs, but probably just artillery pieces. And I like that T has one interceptor and it was just for scouting, and now the rest of the planes are helicopters. It is tanks out of the factories that, or the factory that T built at home. And this will be a very difficult forest for Blue to actually take. Eco-wise, 723 for Blue. And 913 for Red, who's like super catapulted ahead. Off of all this territory that's been capped. I thought these three towns would have done a little bit more. T's continuing to build eco in the top right though. But it's all the eco versus what is 5 barracks from Crypto, who now puts a very forward factory and will apply a bunch of pressure on this town. This is probably like the make or break fight in this game. Especially for T. If Red can just like overwhelm this and push it, there's not really much at home for Blue to defend. Still no dock from Red, which isn't super needed. There's no airports either for Red, so having a bunch of missile boats in the center lake might not be super effective for blue. And that is another town that we hear from Crypto going down, who cannot see these commandos, but T sees 1 factory, 2 barracks. So at least blue knows how many producers there are for red. This is that town location going up. These 2 tanks will do decent, but they're gonna get shot down pretty quick. And once the tanks fall, there's not too much that blue has to really defend this if Crypto decides to get aggressive. There are 4 helicopters, but there's also 4 SAMs for red. And now the factory for Crypto is also complete. Factory in a decent spot for T on the far right side of the map. Getting a 2nd refinery. Still building some tanks. And let's see how 4 SAMs, it's really now 5 SAMs, do against 4 helicopters. At this range, the SAMs are going to do great. They might get 1. And they don't. And T's going to dig in and build 2 more barracks behind that town. This is a really good play from T. And I was going to say with it, we saw a transport boat with some commandos going across the channel, and here they are, the 4 commandos have landed. So maybe a comeback mechanic here for blue is to get a lot of damage with the commandos done. Losing that town and port will kind of matter. 1155 income for red, 922 for blue. Pace is definitely on Crypto's side, who has an airport in the north, building helicopters out of it, and a town on the far left. Just naturally, the way that these reinforcing units for red are moving down to the south, they kind of naturally defend this town. And there's a second it's going to be helicopters. I'm sure it's going to be helicopters out of this airport for Crypto on the bottom right. And for the first time in tournament games that at least we've casted, there is an aircraft carrier. It looks fantastic. And AK Misk, the T2 2023 tournament champion, is in chat. I erroneously said that Tomahawk was the T2 or T1 2023 champion in the bracket prediction video. So officially, I'd like to correct that. 2 factories and 3 barracks is what T's going to use to defend this town. Crypto's going to go around the defensive lines, and really at this point, this is a very, very difficult position for T to be in. And it'll be extremely difficult to actually come back in this game. 972 income for blue and 1400 for red, who is adding another town to the bottom right. And unfortunately, T's going to have really no option but to dig in somewhere here, which in the long term isn't good because they're falling behind a little bit on eco. And you can see what Crypto's feeling because this is a very aggressive forward town. That is definitely in vision of blue. So is it helicopters? It is helicopters in the bottom right airport. Missile boats could potentially help against helicopters in the bottom right. The range of the missiles, if they park the boats kind of here, might be able to defend against the helicopters. And there's always a chance with an aircraft carrier, if it's able to get in a position where like helicopters could just jump in and destroy some producers, but more importantly try to destroy some eco. Top down, this is what we're looking at. So a lot more red than blue. And T has decided that now is the time. I'm going to disband this defensive line, which isn't really doing much now that Crypto's gone around it or positioning more towards the north. It's nice to have some tanks here, I think, as blue, to soak up some shots and allow these blue artillery to get deployed. And T's now got more than 1,000 eco, but still about 500 behind Crypto, who's sitting at 1,500. Here comes 3 helicopters off this aircraft carrier. And T's gonna push. It probably makes a lot of sense. I mean, T has to make something happen here. Good pick off of 2 artillery pieces that are kind of sitting at home being a garrison. And now at this point, Crypto nearly has the bottom left entirely capped. There's not a ton of red infantry, so this is very good for blue. Because there's no meat shield on these artillery pieces. But the reinforcements are looking a little bit scary. Crypto's going to put down 2 more barracks in addition to this other factory behind the town. And chances are that all 3 of these buildings are going to complete and going to be able to start building units to get into this fight. And then it'll become more difficult for blue to actually hold on there. So there's a very real chance that Crypto's going to be able to push up the entire right-hand side of the map and then start pressuring T on this side. And we hear more barracks from Crypto. I think it's in the bottom right most likely, and it is. In a very good position. I mean, worst case, Crypto could even just like dig in here in this mountain range to protect these 2 buildings. The Hero Interceptor, again, the coolest unit in Line War, is here to try to attack some of these helicopters. With the help of the other helicopter, they might actually be able to destroy one. And they do. What we really need is kill counts on units to see how many helicopters that one interceptor will be able to destroy by the end of the game. The target command with 3 red helicopters on this town, they should be able to destroy this. And I lied. They must have taken some damage because I believe, or they shot their rockets at something other than this town, because I think 3 helicopters hovering over a town, they are able to destroy it. T puts down another factory. One of the big things that blue is unfortunately missing from their army at this point is SAMs. 2 factories are starting to make them. They're not going to be able to produce it in time. I suppose with these blue helicopters, maybe one of the SAMs will be able to get out. But you can see what Crypto's thinking with the vision, seeing that there are SAMs produced. Since there's no SAMs, if you have a bunch of helicopters and you make sure that your opponent doesn't get any SAMs out, it's like almost a win condition in the game. Because then your helicopters can continue to just do a bunch of damage. So 1 SAM is out for blue. It's a tough position though for T, because certainly building SAMs, it's not really a great fighting unit necessarily. So every SAM that's built is 1 less artillery piece. But blue doesn't really have a choice, unfortunately. So this is a good defensive line. There's 1 SAM on the way. And I probably should be watching this aircraft carrier more, because this could do a bunch of damage. 3 commandos get 1 barracks. That's a very nice pickup. But in the north, this is not going as well for blue. The missile boat, in conjunction with the helicopters, is actually doing a great job. But it's just production numbers. 4 factories for red, 4 barracks as well. Against 4 factories and 3 barracks for blue. And there's a rocket on the way. A launch pad being constructed for Crypto, who adds 2 more airports. All building helicopters behind this. And top down, this is what it's looking like. I suppose the plan for blue here is to establish a beachhead and then start pushing with some commandos that could take out this town, for example. This factory, and then start cutting off any reinforcements that are heading up to the top right of the map. But by this point, this defensive line is already overrun. And there's enough infantry here for red that they're going to be able to continue pushing to at least this town. And Crypto's going to send the helicopters back, not even try to take on this fight against the SAM. Which is the conservative play, but certainly the one that will steal the win here, if it wasn't already kind of in the bag. Because these red helicopter numbers are just continuing to grow. T might get a town. Since 2 of these commandos, I guess now all 3 are attacking it. Nice pick off. This choke with being close to the water allows these cruisers to do some damage, at least slow down this red army from approaching. And it's 1,200 income for blue and 1,893 for red. This helicopter just Tokyo drifting around, and that is it. GG, well played. Graph time. I guess this is the point where the 3 towns were kind of kicking in. Interesting game. I definitely misread it. I thought that blue was going to have some more eco, but I suppose it's just a lot of infantry. For red, that capped. And that is the game. Well played. Again, this is a game from the upper bracket in the T2 2023 tournament. Also, a very quick shout out to Daseabneren, who's been posting a bunch of casts. And I will link the channel for Daseabneren in the description. I probably could have, should have, would have said that at the beginning of the video, but now I'm saying it at the end. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Hope you're having a wonderful night, day, evening, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is. See you around. Good luck on ladder. Peace.